Prince Andrew. Troubled second son of the late Queen, and yet by all accounts her favourite.
He was a national hero for what he did in the Falklands, and now he's lost everything.
And Sarah Ferguson, the outspoken and often outrageous Duchess who can't stop putting her foot in it.
2 barrels for me.
Welcome, Andrew Lownie, to this special edition of The Briefing Room. And we're here today to talk about your book entitled. First thing I want to tell you is that I really enjoyed this book.
Oh, well, thank you.
It was excellent. It was funny. It was shocking. It made me want to kick something. It made me want to cry, especially over Sarah Ferguson. And yeah, it was an excellent read.
Thank you. Well, no author could ask for anything more than that. So brilliant. That's what I wanted it to be a funny book, and
yeah.
Very few people have picked up on that.
No, it was funny. I mean, it's funny and it's ridiculousness as well. I mean, for him to behave like he does, it's shocking, but it's also shake your head time.
Yeah. They're two very odd people, aren't they? And
very odd.
Trying to understand what makes them tick, but I mean, I could only think entitlement. But we've had it. There they were at the Westminster Cathedral for the service for Duchess of Kent, kind of hijacking the whole thing. And people said, "Are they brazen or stupid?" And I think they're both, aren't they?
That's what I got from the book. I got there with both. What made you decide to write a twin biography of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson?
Well, it's a third of a series of books I've done which have looked at royal marriages, where I didn't believe the story that was being told. And the story here is of the happiest divorced couple ever. I like them because I like rogue royals. I mean, there clearly was scandal around both of them. Yeah. And I wanted to explore that. And I thought there was a lot more to explore than perhaps had come out. There'd never been, there hasn't been a book on either of them for about 40 years. So since I mean, clearly lots of newspaper coverage. So I felt that there was scope there. And, the problem with the royal biography is so many royal books are written by sort of sycophants who sort of get little handouts from the palace. And so to try and do a deep dive and to try and understand what actually what is really happening, is quite sort of attractive.
And how did you approach weaving those two stories of these two very complicated people together?
Well, it's difficult, and I did it with a lot of short chapters, which allowed us to cut between the two, which I thought would help the narrative pace of the book, add to a bit of variety. We had quite a lot of stuff on Sarah, which was cut because the publishers felt that kind of overwhelmed the book. People felt people wanted more on Andrew. But, people have complained about the narrative structure, but it's always very difficult to get that balance between the chronology and the themes. When you're talking about finances or I don't know, various other things, you can't just put them in as they appear. You have to kind of sometimes sit back and do, take the camera out, look at that, and then go back into the sort of day-to-day stuff.
See, I really like that because I was reading it. I was thinking, one more chapter and I'll go to bed. And I'd read that chapter. Oh no, another chapter and I'll go to bed. And I finished it within 3 days.
Gosh,
and
great.
It was like, it was.
That's a great. No, thank you. I mean, that's what I'd hoped. I mean, I like short chapters because, it does. You as you say, you feel I can just do a little bit more. It doesn't look too daunting.
Yeah, exactly. And how did the Freedom of Information Act help you with your research?
Well, funnily enough, this is the first book where it hasn't helped me really.
All right.
I tried to put in lots of requests for his papers when he was the special trade envoy 2001 to 11. And I've got nowhere. I mean, they've used every exemption possible. So I didn't really get anything there, which I thought would be a good source. And of course, with a living person, there are very few documents, data protection, all sorts of things come into play, more complicated with the royals too. So I wish, I'm trying to see if I can campaign to get the files released, and then maybe whether it's through FOI or some other means of parliamentary inquiry, that I think that will open up a whole can of worms, because I kind of feel this is only the tip of the iceberg. I mean, did you not get the sense that there's a lot more to come out?
I think there's I felt where Sarah was really open. The story about Sarah was really open. I felt there was a lot hidden
Yeah.
with Andrew, a lot.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
And
Well, she's spoken to the press, and you know,
yeah,
there's coverage, whereas there's nothing really for him. I mean, even his naval career is hardly known about.
yeah, that's what I felt was the most missing about his naval career. And
Well, the naval people won't talk. That's what's interesting. There's a sort of, I know he wasn't popular, but there's a sort of omerta there, and they just won't talk.
is that they thought your book was going to be a hit piece, which it isn't? But did they think it was going to be a hit piece, or did they just not want to talk about the royal family? Or
I think there's a sort of sense of loyalty, you know, to a fellow serviceman. I mean, I was
right?
in the Naval Reserve. I thought that would help. You know, I could see on forums, private forums, 181 people writing critical things. Sorry, 181 people talking about him. 180 were critical. So I thought, well, I'll try some of these people and just see what they say. And
Yeah,
not one of them responded. So, yeah, it's weird. I mean, the diplomats, after all, spoke to me. But I agree that and I think the business side, you know, the people he's doing business with just don't want to reveal exactly what was going on.
you picture him in the book as a spoiled prince. Do you think his upbringing had a lot to do with that? And
Yeah, yeah,
if so, can you give a few examples of what you thought might have
yeah,
made him
sure.
spoiled?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, that's why I like the cradle to the grave approach because you can't really understand people without the childhood. Just as, you
True.
know, with
Yeah.
Sarah Ferguson and her mother, you know, abandoning the family, you know, shaped her whole life.
Mhm.
Same with Andrew. I mean, he was the child of the second family, in effect, 10-year gap with Princess Anne. He was, I mean, even the Queen admitted he was spoiled. He had no boundaries. People didn't discipline him. He knew he could get away with things. He was always playing practical jokes, you know, whoopee cushions and putting, I don't know, detergent in the pool and tying shoelaces for centuries and moving the sort of the telephone television mast on Buckingham Palace. So, and no one ever did anything. So I think he just realized, you know, he could go through life and do what he wanted, which is
Mm.
what's happened. And no one really, you know, anyone who told him off was punished in effect. And that happened all the way through school and the Navy, and indeed as special trade envoy. So
Mm.
he's been protected all the way through.
What What do you think is the difference between his upbringing then and somebody like Charles or Edward or Anne?
Well, that's a very good question because Edward had a very similar upbringing, and you know he's turned out very differently. I
Mm.
mean, I
Yeah.
suppose one factor is that Andrew was a second only child, really, from February 60 to when Edward was born, which I think it was 64, 65.
Mm.
But I think they're just different characters and they're different genes being inherited. You know,
Yeah.
there are rumors that Andrew is not Philip's son, but I don't go into that. I'm not sure I believe that.
No.
But he's just inherited a different strand of genes.
Yeah.
Because you know, it's always this great debate about you know genetics and upbringing, and clearly his upbringing shouldn't have been that different.
No. It's amazing how different they are because you hardly ever hear if Edward at all.
No, exactly. And everyone says how nice they are, how considerate, staff love them.
Mm.
You know, I wondered if there was some psychological problem with Andrew. I mean, I said, mentioned Tourette's when then actually people who were children of Tourette's said that's not Tourette's. You know, he's clearly a narcissist of some sort.
Yeah.
Uh, but, you know, is there some sort of autism there? His lack of empathy for people, his self-sabotage, his very awkward sort of social behavior. But I think he's just a bully, and he's remained a bully. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
things you know I do talk about is this, you know, whether he was sexually abused as a child, and that
Mm.
might shape at least his sexual addiction later, but
It
it
would.
doesn't
Yeah.
explain his rudeness.
Yeah. I don't know. I said to you on social media. I think there was some autism there, or
Yeah.
there's some mental health problems there because how we can flick the switch. And in my next question is exactly that. As soon as you think that everybody hates him, somebody comes out and says that they really like him. So how do you explain that sort of
It's one of the real challenge.
dichotomy?
challenges with biography. I had the same thing with Mountbatten, and I adopt what I call the mosaic or surat approach, just a series of like pointillism, series of dots that you
Mm,
present, and then kind of people draw their own conclusions from the picture you present. But
yeah,
they're missing bits of the jigsaw, which might help. But I think, well, I suppose we all behave differently at different times to different people. Um, and but yeah, I mean, almost goes out of his way to be unpleasant to people when most of us go out
yeah,
of our way to try and be pleasant.
yeah. Even at really important meetings, he could be quite nasty.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand that because that could lose him a lot of business, and he did lose him business in the end.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, no one, his time as a trade envoy, he made a mess of that. He couldn't
Mhm.
get on in the Navy because of problems there. It's almost there's a sort of self-destruct button there. It's almost as if, he doesn't want to succeed. And this is a way of actually getting out of, having the demands placed on him. I mean, he is a sort of man-child, this love of teddy
Yeah.
bears. He hasn't really his juvenile
Mhm.
sense of humor. A bit like Sarah Ferguson. I don't think he's ever really wanted to grow up.
And I mean that reflects in the public perception of him. But do you think that he's aware of the public perception, or do you think that he's just in denial?
Well, he can't be unaware of the public perception, but yet he doesn't seem to care, which is really odd. You would think that he would, like going to the memorial service, you would think he would avoid any opportunity to criticize him.
Yeah.
He kind of walks straight down the middle. So I think he is just so unself-aware and so self-centered that
Mm.
he can't see anything except from his own point of view and what suits him.
And he had a very rich love life. Do you think that there was anybody that he actually did have a liaison with that he would have married if royal protocol hadn't stood in the way?
Yes, I think there were a couple. I mean, I think Koo Stark, I think he was keen to marry her, and that would
Mm.
have been actually a successful marriage. I think, possibly. I think the Sarah Ferguson, they're clearly still good friends, even though they had this open marriage.
Yeah,
He asked Amanda Staveley to marry him, and I think she decided that, she didn't want that. A bit like Cressida Bonas and Prince Harry or Chelsea. So yeah, I think there were women. I mean, he's had quite a long relationship on and off with Angie Everhart, the actress. But you're right. Most of these relationships are very short-lived. I mean, they're a lot of them are sort of transactional. He seems to just want to have the experience. A new woman, a new prostitute.
yeah,
But some of these women with him were intelligent, sensitive women, this is one of the things that baffles me because what are they doing with him? Given his character? Are there hidden
yeah.
depths that I've missed? Or is it just that these are ambitious women who like the idea of being associated with the Queen's second son?
See, this is why you need to dig further and do another book.
Yeah, and talk to a psychiatrist.
Yeah. But I mean, that was talking about humor in your book. That was humorous when he was with one woman and he started counting
Oh yeah,
COVID sex, and he said that Koo Stark had taught him to do that, so he didn't arrive too early.
yes,
It,
yes.
that's
Well, also, I mean, he's quite sort of in some ways naive, and the fact I wouldn't
yeah,
describe that to someone, but so that's that almost that childishness that he hasn't
yeah.
really, understood that's probably not something you should boast about.
And I don't think you should count out loud either.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
And you talk a lot about his business deals. And what is your assessment of his business acumen? Do you
Well, I
think?
think he's well advised.
Yeah.
He has people like Johan Eliash, who's a very successful entrepreneur, who has helped him. So, and I think he gets good advice. Whether he listens to it is another question.
Hmm.
I think David Rowlands, who claims to be his sort of financial advisor, again, is a very successful businessman. And I think he has made quite a lot of money. I mean, I think, I mean, they're not always, shall we say, the ways the royal members of the royal family should be making money, but I think he's actually been quite canny about some of his investments,
Hmm.
about how he's leveraged his royal position to make money for himself. So,
With a
yeah,
lot of dodgy people.
But always with dodgy people. That's always
Mm,
the thing. These are the people who gravitate to, towards him, and he gravitates towards them. And it's true of
yeah.
Sarah Ferguson as well. And you would think that, for most of us, we would just see these people from a mile off and say, we can't get involved with you.
Mm,
But they kind of like it. And of course, if these people are giving them, basically nice and giving them money and making things happen,
yeah.
and telling them they're wonderful, then I suppose it's easy to be taken in.
And you mentioned examples of Andrew's extravagant lifestyle. How does he pay for that? Even, I mean, he's lost his real duties now, so how does he pay for his extravagant lifestyle? Because you mentioned he flies on helicopters that cost thousands. He flies from one city to the next, just in the UK for thousands.
Well, I think, he has a lot of benefactors who pay for these trips.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not always paying, who give him free holidays, who pay for, meals. I don't think he puts his hand in his pocket too often. I mean, he inherited money from his grandmother and his mother, and perhaps earlier. He has been making money through Pitch at the Palace and other operations.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's money there. I mean, you're right, given his overheads, and I mean, the big overhead is the staff at Royal Lodge, but he's cut back on the staff. The upkeep is not as good as it was. So I think maybe he is struggling. The big question is who's paying for the security? I mean, is
Yeah,
it him or the state? It's not always clear because that would be a huge cost. So it is a mystery, but royal finances are so opaque that it's really difficult
yeah.
to work out.
Because didn't Charles tell him that he wasn't going to pay for his security anymore? He'd had to pay for himself.
Well, that's the public line.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's true, because actually I've been in contact with one of his drivers, and his drivers quite recently was seconded by the army. So
Mm-hmm.
we were paying for that.
Oh,
So
right.
yeah, you do wonder.
And your book reveals that the prince was seduced by a Russian spy without breaking any secrets. Could you tell the listener a bit about that?
Yeah, well, we put that in. I think it's an interesting story. I mean, it's a glamorous female Russian who dyed her hair red because he likes redheads. Seduced him supposedly in a Knightsbridge hotel. Gave him a computer which was bugged so they could listen to him. Gave some money for one of his daughters to go on holiday in Switzerland. So there's quite a lot of sort of detail there from my source, which
Mm,
helps me think it's true.
yeah.
But of course, if this is true, then clearly he's been compromised by one of our enemies. What compromat have they got on him? What has he
Mm,
said? What can he say? I mean, does he have access to secrets? Or are these royal secrets, military secrets, trade secrets? As you say, there's I'd love to do some more digging because we've only got part of the story here.
yeah. And do you think that's naivete on his part
Yes.
that he got caught like that? Yeah.
Yes, I think he doesn't care. He's kind of ruled by not shall we say by his head. And it's things happen, and I mean maybe he doesn't listen to people. Maybe they don't give him advice. Who knows? But yeah, and that seems to be the case not just with the Russian spy, but when he was in Kazakhstan, when he's been in on his travels abroad,
Yeah.
Middle East. Lots of people have compromat on him, and he must be concerned about that because and the fact hasn't come out suggests that this stuff has worked. They've been able to blackmail him into giving them whatever they want,
Yeah.
and it's not being revealed.
And well, the talking about compromat, his biggest scandal, uh, obviously, was Jeffrey Epstein. Um, you say in the book that their relationship was a lot longer than has been stated. 10 years longer.
Yes, so that's what, according to the private secretary who talks
Mhm.
about, the meeting at the beginning of the 1990s, Steve Hoffenberg, who was part of a Ponzi scheme with Epstein, also talks about the beginning of the 90s.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to get one's head around that because he was in the Navy for until 2001.
Yeah.
I mean, he had big breaks, but I mean, you know, he couldn't have been seeing him that much then. We don't really have lots of evidence with the two of them together. We don't have, the flight logs. We don't have testimony from people like Virginia Giuffre. So,
Yeah,
that's a little bit to investigate. But he was, according to my sources, operating in Kazakhstan with Mark Thatcher in the 90s, which no one knew.
yeah.
Um, and if he was able to do that, he clearly had time off from the Navy. And certainly when I've talked to some people, they said that, he wasn't always there in the Navy. There were big breaks between postings.
Yeah, well, as soon as Trump stops sitting on the files, we might see a bit more.
Yeah, well, I'm rather excited. The fact that, things might come out. I think I wasn't very confident that it would before.
Yeah,
But I thought, that it had been shut down. But I think, we do seem to getting some traction, and I think, that will be damaging. People are saying that,
yeah,
there's damaging material there. We've got the possible victims coming forward. We've got, these 18,000 emails from Bloomberg. We've got the birthday book.
yeah.
We may have more legal depositions. So, yeah, I think he and lots of other people should be pretty nervous at the moment about what may emerge.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm hoping that they get a good result in the midterms, because then things might start happening then. Hopefully.
Well, but it might check the powers of Trump because I mean he
Yeah.
runs in effect a dictatorship at the moment.
At the
Everyone is scared to
Yeah.
talk,
Yeah.
and one hears horrific stories of people's WhatsApp messages being checked and being confiscated, and it is quite a frightening situation, and it's a sort of gangster. He's a
Yeah.
gangster of Trump.
He is.
Um,
He is.
um,
He's just taking over the media at the minute, because everybody who speaks out against him is getting sacked. So
Exactly.
it's
Well, that's why the
crazy.
role of independent media, people like you, indeed people like me, is so important because
Yeah.
he can't come after all of us, and
No,
people need to talk out and expose what's going on because otherwise, we're all going to be in trouble.
we are. And talking of Trump, his little mate, Ghislaine Maxwell, how does she sit in the Epstein Andrew relationship?
Well, she's part of the threesome. I mean,
Mm,
Andrew had an affair with her off and on. I mean, Epstein clearly did as well. I think one of the interesting things is Epstein quite liked the idea that they were concurrently sleeping together. Um, she did business activities for Andrew. She was a procurer for Andrew. I mean, actually here in London, but she fulfilled the role that she did later for Epstein in the States.
mhm.
So they're very, very much joined. I mean, she is if she was really to tell the truth, I mean, she knows where all the bodies are buried and everything. But of
Yeah,
course, she's not going to. And now she's been given a get out of jail free card.
yeah,
Whether we will ever get the real story from her, I think is doubtful.
yeah. Like I say, we're just hoping for the files now. Um, you portray Prince Andrew as a useful idiot to Epstein. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, Epstein played him basically. He got him because of his status and respectability and some of the contacts he picked up as a trade envoy. In return, he gave him access to girls, access to money for Fergie, some more access to individuals that perhaps Andrew wasn't in touch with. But I think he did play him. He collected this compromat, which he may have threatened him with. He set him up with that picture in the park, knowing the paparazzi were out there that
Mm,
it would only just make Andrew look more foolish. And Andrew must realize now, that he's been used by Epstein. Um, so yeah, he was a useful idiot. He was low-hanging fruit. I mean, the props were others, but he's taken most of the sort of so far, most of
yeah,
the pressure. And I think that's partly because people feel he might not respond, he can't respond, or maybe he's more deeply implemented than people think.
yeah.
Uh, so he must rue, well, he does claims rue the day he met Epstein, but uh, anyone could see that Epstein was going to be trouble.
Yeah, and I think with him being a royal as well, you're not supposed to talk about anything, are you? So that's sort of controlling him from talking about Epstein anyway.
Yes, yeah, well, I can't imagine other members of the royal family, falling for Epstein, and if they did, him not getting anything. But I think Andrew was, to say, he's not ruled by his head, And I think Epstein was giving him lots of things that he wanted, which was access to women. Um,
Mhm.
so, but why he wasn't stopped earlier, people were complaining about Air Miles Andy, the fact he made a mess of his time as special trade envoy. You
Yeah.
would have thought, people would have said, we need to shut this down, but he was allowed to keep going. Then he went off to pitch at the palace. He's been allowed to go to family events, when you would have thought they would have read the Riot Act that, we don't want you out there because you're an embarrassment. He just doesn't care, and seems to somehow get round all that.
And why do you think that one of the most foolish things I think he did was go in person to tell him that the relationship was over and stayed with him for 4 days? Why do you think he stayed with him for 4 days and not telephone him or whatever?
Well, because he didn't go to say goodbye, and we know that. We
Oh,
know that
okay.
they remained in contact. He went to get some
Hmm.
more money for Fergie to do some more business deals. So that was just a very blatantly obvious lie, like so many of his lies. And I don't know why he didn't think he would be called out for it.
And the Newsnight interview was a complete and utter disaster. What do you think that the public perception, the long-standing public perception is of him because of that?
Well, I think he's absolutely nailed his reputation as a bit of an oaf,
Mhm.
as pretty arrogant, as pretty stupid, as someone lacking any sense of sympathy for any sense of apology for what he'd done. In some ways, if he'd just quietly gone under the radar, people might have forgotten about it. They'd read the story, Tomorrow's Fish and Chips. But
Mhm.
here we have him, basically, um, telling all these lies, trying to appear serious when we know we're having the wool pulled over our eyes, and
Mhm.
it just completely undermined his reputation. So it was all there in black and white. We could see it and we can replay
Yeah.
it. I mean, absolutely mad thing to do.
And it was so stupid. The things that he said were so stupid and so provably wrong.
Yeah.
So I do not know what was going through his head when he did that. I really
Well,
don't.
I think because he's stupid, he doesn't sort of think things through. He thinks that if he says something, people will believe him because he's, Prince Andrew. Um, but you would have thought that he would have test run this with the way politicians do with
Yeah.
test questions. There would have been prescription about what he could talk about. It would have been much, much shorter. There would have been there were people sitting in the room, but they didn't feel
Mhm.
they could interfere. But with some sort of editorial control to cut things.
Yeah.
No, I mean
Nothing.
it was an open goal, that he gave everyone, and of course Emily Maitlis took it.
Because it was him who started talking about Epstein immediately, wasn't it?
Well, I think that when they did the negotiations, they'd originally been talking about Pitch of the Palace,
Mhm.
and then Newsnight said we want to talk about Epstein, and he said fine, and they said we don't want any sort of boundaries, and they said fine, and so that's what this discussion was on. You're absolutely right. It was all Epstein. There was
Yeah.
nothing about anything else
Nothing.
he'd done. So that would have given it a little bit more context and balance, but he kind of walked straight into the lion's den.
Crazy. Let's turn to Sarah Ferguson now. And to be honest, initially I felt really sorry for her. And I felt really sorry for her because of her background. Can you tell the listener a bit about her background and her childhood?
Yeah, no, it is a sad story. I mean, she's her father and mother both had affairs. Her mother then, when she was 13, ran off with an Argentinian polo player,
Mhm.
actually abandoned the family. So this gave Sarah sort of worries about abandonment. She started overeating, put on weight, had low self-esteem, wanted to be a people pleaser, tried to be generous to people. I mean, she was actually a popular girl at school, but at home, she only had her father, her older sister had gone off to get married. She had no mother figure there to sort of advise her. And she was a pretty lost soul. So you do feel sorry for her, and she has lots of great qualities. She's a very sort of bubbly, charismatic figure. She was very good at her jobs she had in PR.
Mm.
Um, and in some ways, if these two hadn't come together, they kind of brought out the worst in each other. You know, normally marriages try and bring out the best, but you know, this was a bad combination, and they were both greedy. They both have no real moral boundaries, and so you know, if she'd married some sort of boring army officer who kind of kept her in shape, and she didn't get this ideas of folie de grandeur, then you know she might have been kept on the straight and narrow. And if he had married a coup start figure, or maybe someone else, you
Mm.
know, there wouldn't have been this problems of debt going to people like Epstein. The fact that you know they say there were these no moral boundaries, they just felt they could do what they wanted, that the rules didn't apply to them.
Yeah.
So it is a sort of tragedy in some ways, you know, and it could have been prevented. And if there'd been more support from members of the family, both families, then you know, some of their mistakes wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I don't think the royals are very supportive of anybody, are they?
No, I mean they will claim they're busy, but it's very interesting. I've just come from a talk, and there as a man who, funny enough, knew Fergie well. His children were at the same school. Said Fergie was never there at the school, and neither was Andrew. I mean, it was just the detective and the nanny.
Mm.
And yet he now lives beside the prep school that Kate and William's children go to. And Kate is always there. She's always at netball matches. She's really
Mm.
hands-on. She's very popular.
Yeah.
So two different styles of parenting, two different generations, one set of, I think, probably well-adjusted kids, and this very dysfunctional, well, I think this very dysfunctional family, the Yorks, because I think
Yeah.
that the children have their own problems, Beatrice and Eugenie.
See, I think that what was interesting about your book as well, because you've got the two people who become the same, but they become the same in two different ways. One is because of his upbringing, and one hits that bad road partly because of the upbringing, but hits that bad road mainly when she meets Andrew. So
Yes,
it
yes.
was,
I think she, you know, without the advantages of being a royal, she wouldn't have clearly been able to make the money she did and do the things she did
yeah,
and meet people. You know, it gave her an opportunity. I mean, she always had the taste for the high life, so she might have found some millionaire. But you know, she realized
mm,
that, you know, she hit the jackpot with the royals, and you know, there was money, there was access, there was very little scrutiny.
yeah.
And so she could behave exactly as she wanted. And I think Paul Burrell has a line, you know, it's like finding a girl going into the sweetie shop and just going mad.
Can you give some examples of how she uses that royal status?
Well, I mean, she uses her royal status to get upgrades, to get freebie holidays, to you know, mix with, you know, celebrities and film stars. She uses it to help set up charities, which of course help her meet with a lot of these people. I mean, her whole social life, you know, wouldn't be the same without her royal status.
Mhm.
You know, she wouldn't be friends with Elton John and Billy Connolly and people. It's given her, of course, for the plus side, it's given her an opportunity to set up charities and to do good works, which she's done, to be
Mhm.
fair to her. So, you know, it's had good and bad sides, but I think you know, the
Yeah,
fact is that people do spoil her because, you know, they want to get in with the royals. She has long-standing good friends who no doubt, you know, kind of keep her slightly on the ground. But, you know, she's just drawn to dodgy people. And you know what they can bring her, which is, you know, I'm afraid only trouble.
mm. Yeah. I do see her as a woman who is desperate to be liked, and I mean, the money that she gets, even though it's grifted off of it, she's buying gifts for people. The men that she sees, the lavish lifestyle that she has, like you say, mixing with celebrities, and I feel sorry for her in that way as well. That she's so desperate to be liked, she'll do anything to do it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you know, and she's wildly of the top in the way how generous she is.
Yeah.
But and she admits this. You know, she says she's trying to sort of buy people's love. In fact, you know, I think she's probably quite a loyal friend and a kind person,
Mm.
and she doesn't need to do this. But yeah, she's just has no stop button. I think the thing is, where we would like to give, one extravagant present, she'll give five,
Yeah.
when she doesn't need to. It's really weird.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
the presents that she gives as well are like just so over the top and expensive. And it's like, well, if somebody was a true friend, they wouldn't want that. They
yes,
just want they just want your company.
exactly. Well, they're quite naff. There's a lot of silver. She hasn't got a great deal of taste. People criticize her for her clothes, they criticize her for the house. Um, neither of them actually have, are very sophisticated people. So that's one element. I agree, and it's weird. It's just that, yeah, she's got to go over the top. She's got to do bigger and better than anyone else,
Yeah.
which is why, she has these huge staffs. I mean, she had one person just responsible on her staff for wrapping up presents, that she gave presents so much. She was actually banned from using the franking machine at Windsor or Buckingham Palace because she abused it, sending things out. And it's I'm just amazed that people didn't sort of, come and try and get her to organize her budget and things before. I mean, she'd take wildly extravagant houses to rent. So one of them she didn't even live in for a year because people were coming back early. She'll take planes or miss planes without actually being able to get a reimbursement. She'll send someone on Concorde to take a bit of paper somewhere. She'll organize, several meals because she can't decide which one she wants to eat. She'll have very expensive holidays. And, money, I suppose, came quite easily to her, and she kind of thought that would never stop. And so she could just carry on. But of course, the music did catch up with her.
One of the strangest things that I read about her was when she has a meal, she'll have three roasts on the table.
Yes, that's a story from Alan Starkey.
That's crazy.
It's a weird thing, and people can't believe it. But I don't know. I mean, she is, and then they'll eat some kettle chips. She's very
Yeah, yeah.
indecisive. But I think, because she knows that the cooks can do this, she
Mm,
just is. If she was having to cook them, it wouldn't happen. But she can just order people to do it. So why not? And then maybe I'll see how I feel on the evening, and which bits I want to, dig into. And it's, that's again a sign of a very spoilt person.
yeah. And that's only since Andrew, isn't it? Because I mean, she hasn't been spoilt with her own family. So it's only since
I
she's
think
met Andrew that she was
I,
spoiled.
I think that her parents were extravagant and they did get themselves into debt, but
Mm,
yeah, not on the same scale. I think there were, probably boundaries there. I mean, Ron didn't make a huge amount of money, but he would throw various lavish parties. Um, you know, her mother wasn't very good with money. She didn't take advice. She set up a polo farm. She didn't do all the things she was supposed to do. She kind of bought flats when she didn't have any money and then didn't use them. So actually, some of the same behavior that you see with Sarah, actually
yeah.
you can see with her mother.
And she had a lot of financial problems, as you discuss in the book. And how, with all the financial problems, how does she afford her jet-setting lifestyle?
Well, I think by building up more debt. I think she borrowed money off people and then struggled to be able to repay them.
Mhm.
She clearly had this very open loan facility from Coots until it was shut down. I think she always thought there was something around the corner, a little bit like, characters from Dickens. Weird. I mean, she didn't feel she had to always pay her bills. I mean, she would check out of hotels without paying the service charge or the room service and things. So she had a slightly odd view of money that it was someone else's, someone else would pick up the tab, and they often
Mm.
did. She had these rich mentors, and she would, drink the room service dry and then expect them to pay the bills.
And the woman seems to, she'll appear on anything, she'll sell anything, she'll put a name to anything. Do you think that is, again, trying to be liked? Do you think it's greed? Do you think it's just, I want to be in the media? What do you think it is?
Yeah, no, I think she, she does have these great illusions, great fantasies of being a sort of media player.
Mm.
I think she is a fantasist, and she doesn't really, you know, she doesn't think through anything. She lives for the moment and doing things, that will suit her at the moment. And somehow it will all sort itself out, and someone will come to her rescue, whether it's the Queen or Prince Andrew or one of these rich mentors. So she doesn't think through the consequences of whatever she's doing. But it's a good question, and I did and suggest that she cooperate, and those are the sort of questions I would have put to her,
Yeah.
and that would have been her opportunity to explain herself. But she didn't want to cooperate, and possibly because she can't explain herself.
Well, she doesn't explain herself in her biography, because every time she's asked the story, the same stories come along and there's different answers. She's always changing her life
Yeah, I think
to suit the moment, like you said.
that's a very interesting point. Or she distanced herself. She says that was Sarah, and now I'm Fergie or something.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or she blames other people, or but yeah, she just kind of she disassociates herself with whatever she's done. She can't take
Yeah.
responsibility for her own actions. Um, and that's again another sign of a narcissist, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And after everything, even the Epstein story, she stays with Andrew. Why do you think that is? Do you think that, again, that's abandonment issues? She doesn't want to lose somebody who wants to be with her?
I think that's a good point. I think, he has stood by her, and she's loyal to him in return, and she's standing by him. She wants, she enjoys, being part of the royal family. It gives her kudos. It gives her business making opportunities, her social status. But I think there is a personal thing there. I mean, they want to be joint parents and grandparents. They get on well. They talk the whole time. They've got business ventures together.
Mhm.
So they're kind of joined at the hip. They kind of understand each other. They're sort of Bonnie and Clyde. So yeah, I mean, there are abandonment issues there. I mean, most people have kind of abandoned her. I mean, there are a few friends, but the royal family, Prince Philip would have nothing to do with her. She wants to belong, and this, being part with Andrew gives her a sense of belonging, which she didn't have as a child.
Do you think they'd be together if Andrew wasn't a royal?
No,
No.
no, I don't think she would be together. I mean, even her father said, just someone, I'm not sure she loves Andrew. She loves the idea of the royal family and being part of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the irony. I mean, she says that, she hates the royal establishment, but she kind of, that's what she wanted. She bought in. She said, I married a naval officer. I didn't marry a prince, but actually she really wanted a prince.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she found that marriage to a prince wasn't necessarily a great idea.
Not this one, anyway.
Well, exactly, not this one. There are other better ones.
In your opinion, how did the rest of the royals deal with all the scandals?
When the royal families approaches, never complain, never explain, hope the problem goes away, try and distract things, use a bit of patronage to sort of neutralize people, put pressure on others who can't be persuaded in other ways, and we've weathered a few storms in the past, and we'll get through this one. I think at the moment, certainly. With Andrew and Fergie, the picture I got from the cathedral scene on day before yesterday, or earlier in the week rather, is that the royals are embarrassed by them. They're sort of polite, but they kind of deeply would prefer to be anywhere but in the same room with these two. And so it's difficult for them. They've got to slightly keep them on side in case they spill the beans. But at the same time, they can see that they're, reputationally are not good for either the royal they're seen with or for the institution itself.
Because the royal family are not short on scandals, are they, with anybody? I think William and Kate are the only ones that haven't had a scandal, in possibly Edward.
Yep. Yep. No, well, I mean, Sophie had a brief scandal with when she was caught by the fake shake, but absolutely. They have got I mean, I think there probably have been scandals which have been hushed up.
Yeah,
But you're absolutely right. The others all behave perfectly. Everyone loves Anne, Edward,
yeah,
Sophie, Kate, Will, the lot. Um, the only ones that are causing problems are Harry and Meghan, who are kind of in another country now and
yeah.
no longer sort of around. And Fergie and Andrew. I mean, why Fergie's in the royal box, why she goes to these family services when they've been
Mm,
divorced 30 years is a mystery to a lot of people.
yeah. And the Queen did invite her though several times, didn't she? Like Christmas dues and things.
Yes, the
They
Queen treated her very well. I mean, even
yeah,
when Philip didn't want her there on Christmas Day, she was at Wood Farm. The Queen would come down to Wood Farm and see her. I think the children were, I don't think they were quite as estranged as Fergie would present.
mhm,
I think there was one year where there was some sob story in one of the papers, and another paper actually went and investigated and found that actually the Queen was paying for this super duper Christmas lunch with other members of Sarah Ferguson's family.
yeah,
And then she was joining them later on. So, but she plays the victim. Poor me, I'm being
yeah,
bullied by people. I've had a rough time. And actually, she's the bully. I mean, not paying people, small tradesmen who really depend on their bills being paid,
yeah.
just ignoring them as little people.
And Andrew treats people terribly, his staff,
Yeah,
when he's shouting at his staff and calling them up at 2 o'clock in the morning to complain. It's absolutely disgusting.
yeah.
And he treats the palace like a hotel or a club.
Exactly. Well,
Uh,
even the club, you'd have to sign in your guests, and he doesn't want to
yeah,
sign
yeah,
in his guests.
it's
But
true.
I suppose most people aren't signing in prostitutes, and so he's quite keen.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it makes a joke of all the security issues. If these people are being let into Buckingham Palace, they're able to wander around, no one knows who they are,
yeah,
and then we're paying huge sums for their protection, when actually it could be any one of these ladies from escorts who could have a dagger in her thing and wander down the corridor and stab the Queen. It
true.
beggars belief, actually.
Yeah.
And he's incredibly rude to anyone who challenges him. I mean,
Hmm.
there was a story, actually, I think I tell in the book, where there'd been an intruder and security was stepped up. And then he was caught having a walk in Buckingham Palace grounds. And the policemen kind of got their own back on him by kind of beating him up, pretending that he was an intruder. Um, but yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is paid for by the taxpayer.
Yeah.
And he just takes it for granted that everything is there for his own personal pleasure and not because of his position. And therefore, he has a responsibility under that position to behave well, not to take advantage of the fact that taxpayers are covering it. All these Air Miles Andes, all these
Yeah.
helicopter flights, you were talking about rather than take the train. Ridiculous.
Mhm.
This is money from people who are from their hard-won taxes, who are, struggling, particularly in times of cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
Doesn't think twice about, just bumping it on the bill for someone else.
It's a disgusting way to live. And it's very like we said, narcissistic way to live, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's good that, eventually people like you and me are calling this out
Mm.
because until there's more of that, he will just get away with it
Yeah.
and continue to behave like that.
And do you think that the way he's behaved and all the scandals, especially the Epstein, because it was so big, do you think that threatens the future of the monarchy?
Well, I think we're at a pivotal point because if some pretty awful stuff comes out from the files, if for example he's been sleeping with very young girls, if there's been real corruption goes up, higher than him to the Queen, then yeah, I think we're in dangerous territory. The
Yeah.
polls at the moment are suggesting only 50% support for the monarchy.
Mhm.
The younger people are not interested in the monarchy. It doesn't relate to their lives.
Yeah.
More investigations by people like Channel 4 and Sunday Times into their finances. Lots of criticism of the Duchy of Lancaster and Cornwall estates. The fact that they're making money off hospital car parks and various things.
Hmm.
The huge sovereign grant they get, which is tied into income from just owning the seabed around Britain and all these wind farms.
Yeah.
People are going to start saying we want more accountability, we want the less opaqueness about their finances. we want maybe them to be given a fixed budget each year, and that's what they've got to live under.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see, particularly under a Labour government, there may well be some change, but it needs to come from both the media and and Parliament.
Yeah.
And the signs, people are scared of criticising them.
Do you think it would change under a William and Kate leadership?
Well, I hope it'll change. I mean, William is a pretty secretive person. He's not in favor of freedom of information. He's not come clean about their finances. So, I mean, they present a very attractive picture. He's quite decisive and ruthless about people, I suspect, like Andrew. But whether we'll have more accountability is another question. I think they're much more savvy on their PR, the fact they live in or have lived in a pretty modest house. That they can travel by commercial airliner and things. They're clever. They don't put a foot wrong. People treat them as just another middle class family who are relatable and have still maintained some dignity.
Yeah.
I mean, they're word perfect in that respect, but I think they will need to be some shift in opening up records, for example, royal wills, allowing parliamentary questions, maybe trying to clean out the stables, saying, look, what went on in the past has nothing to do with us. We want to, to get this story out, to clean it up, and we won't behave like that.
Yeah.
But there isn't the corruption that you see of basically taking money for giving it for access.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully things do change.
Well, between the two of us, we'll see what we can do.
Given everything you've learned, do you think there is a way for Andrew to return to public life?
I think it's going to be very difficult for Andrew to return to public life. I mean, he had opportunities to come back. I mean, he could have done penance, working for charities. He could have, done his apologies. He could have, done all sorts of things, which he hasn't done. And I think it's all a bit late now. So, and I think just its character, it's not going to happen. I think the interesting question is whether Fergie can come out of this. She just goes, whether she's just going to go on Oprah, give a big interview somewhere, say, I've been, I'm a victim of this whole thing. Everyone's being nasty to me. Do a bit more charity work. And think that she can wiggle out of it. She is the sort of Houdini Rasputin of the royal family. One bound and she's out. And so I think that'll be the really interesting question. And I think she probably will. She's quite not just, well, she's charming, and she's also pretty canny. And I think she will find a way. She's worked her way back into the affections of Camilla and Charles. I think there's no reason she won't somehow persuade people. I mean, when I give talks, people are very upset when I'm critical of her. She still has a huge following in the States. So yeah, I think it's going to take a lot more and she's clearly not associated with Epstein, though she should be. And if there are, again, strong connections with her there that come out and shown that she's lied, I mean, she certainly carried on dealing with Epstein a lot longer than she said, then maybe people will say, look, we've given her enough chances. This is it.
Yeah. When I was thinking about the questions to ask you today, that specific question, Andrew reminded me of Michael Barrymore, that if he puts his head above the parapet, he's just going to be shot. Because Michael Barrymore cannot do anything without getting heavy criticism, and then he has to go undercover again. And I just think that of Andrew. I just think that's what will happen.
Yeah, well, there are enough people around. He didn't make many friends on the way up, so they're not defending him now. But you're right. I mean, he clearly doesn't have Virginia Giuffre there, but he has her family. He had the lawyers. There may be other victims involved with him. He's put a lot of noses out of joint, and so and as you say, the documentation is there, and it just needs to be released, and that may really undermine his story. As you say, obvious patent lies. Never met Giuffre and stuff. But if we suddenly find correspondence talking about Virginia Giuffre, even correspondence with her, then he's completely finished.
Yeah. And finally, what is one key thing that you think you want the readers to take away from reading entitled?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that this is meant to be a study of two very flawed individuals. In some ways, it's a tragedy of how they fell from grace, having been very popular, and how that can happen, how they were supported by an institution which itself is not completely squeaky clean. That it's a book not just about Epstein, but a book about, as I say, financial corruption and the monetizing of the royal
Yeah.
family. I hope they take away it's as you've noticed, it's meant to be a funny book, but it's a sort of tragic comedy, really.
Yeah. And it is for those who want to read it, and I recommend you do, that, like I say, it is very funny. I think you'll feel sorry for Sarah Ferguson up to a point.
Well, I
But
think the thing is, as the things begin to emerge, then people realize
yeah,
maybe she's not such a victim as she portrays herself,
yeah. But
and she becomes more of a villain. And I think
yeah,
maybe possibly does he become more of a victim himself as we see him as this lone figure in Royal Lodge with no friends, his reputation absolutely in tatters, having been the blue-eyed boy. You know, there is a sort of narrative arc in both cases.
yeah. I think what's I found good about the writing was it flips everything on its head. So you'll see that he's a nasty piece of work, and then it'll flip it, and he's lonely. He's just sitting at home watching the TV while everybody else is partying. And
Yeah.
same with Sarah. You'll see it, like, you'll feel really sorry for her, and then you'll flip it on its head, and you won't feel sorry for her. You'll just think, what is she doing?
Yeah, no, well, I tried to do
So
that. You know, there are shocking segues. I mean, funny enough, one of
yeah,
the American editors said, "Oh, you should segue more obviously." But the thing is, and that reflects their
no,
life, which is kind of up and
yeah,
down the whole time, and their reputations go up and down. But I mean,
yeah,
that's in some ways makes it most shocking because you kind of never quite know where your sympathies lie with them. I mean, that's what I
yeah.
was trying to do.
And you did it very well. So
Well, thank you. Well, it's
you're
been
welcome.
fantastic to talk to you. Great
You
questions,
too. Thank you.
and I hope the first of many.
Okay, well, thank you, Andrew Lownie, and take care.
Thanks, and you.